Some of the best movies of the 1980s were complete box office failures. Audiences didn't show up, or critics just didn't care for them, but studios quickly moved on. A few crashed hard, while others quietly missed expectations. Either way, they lost money and got buried. But time has a funny way of rewriting the narrative. Today, we're looking at some of the most influential and beloved movies of the 80s that were hiding in plain sight. Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro reunited in 1982 for what should have been a slam dunk. Instead, the king of comedy bombed so hard it barely made back a fraction of its cost. $19 million to make, and while earning just $2.5 million at the box office. Audiences expected another Taxi Driver, but got a pitch-black satire about delusion, obsession, and the dark side of fame. De Niro plays Rupert Pupkin, a wannabe comedian with no talent and even less self-awareness, who kidnaps a late-night talk show host just to get a few minutes of air. It's uncomfortable, awkward, and eerily ahead of its time. In the age of social media and parasocial relationships, the king of comedy feels more relevant than ever, a cautionary tale about what happens when people mistake attention for validation. Audiences didn't love it, critics were split, and it disappeared fast. But today it plays like a warning shot nobody wanted to hear. Directed by John Boorman, the Oscar-nominated filmmaker behind Deliverance and Excalibur, The Emerald Forest had all the ingredients of a serious critical hit. A $15 million budget, an ambitious environmental message, and a grounded performance from Powers Booth, one of the best character actors of his era.
Well, bye.
The film follows a dam engineer searching for his son, who disappears into the Amazon and is raised by an indigenous tribe. It's part ecological fable, part spiritual odyssey. And while it technically turned a small profit at the box office, it faded fast, overlooked by audiences, ignored by award season, and mostly forgotten in the years that followed. Today, it plays like a movie that should have been bigger, thoughtful, beautifully shot, and way more ambitious than people gave it credit for. 52 Pickup is a nasty little thriller with sharp edges and no illusions. Directed by John Frankenheimer, who directed thrillers from the 1960s, such as The Manchurian Candidate and Seconds, it stars Roy Schneider, who plays a successful businessman, blackmailed over an affair with his mistress, played by the sultry Anne Margaret. The movie spirals into a grimy web of extortion, sleaze, and payback. While it cost $8 million to make and barely earned $5 million back, it's better than most people remember. John Glover is unforgettable as the lead villain, smug, manipulative, and downright deranged. The tension builds through the slow unraveling of control. It's slick, seedy, and shot through the lens with that specific kind of Reagan-era paranoia that makes everything feel just a little dirty. It may not have found a big audience in 1986, but it holds up as a sharp, mean thriller that knew exactly what it was doing.
Step right up, folks. Ride the ride of the century on Eli's killer crane.
The Stunt Man is one of the strangest, most self-aware movies of the decade. A psychological thriller wrapped in a movie about making a movie. Peter O'Toole plays a deranged director who blurs the line between fiction and reality while manipulating a fugitive into doing his stunt work. It's funny, surreal, and occasionally brilliant. Directed by Richard Rush, it earned 3 Oscar nominations, including Best Actor for O'Toole, Best Director for Rush, and Best Adapted Screenplay. But despite critical acclaim, the film barely made a dent commercially. It had a budget of $3.5 million and grossed just over $7 million, but its limited release meant hardly anyone saw it. As Peter O'Toole later joked, the film wasn't released, it escaped. Years later, it developed a bit of a cult following, and today it plays like the kind of fearless, chaotic filmmaking that rarely slips through the cracks anymore. Directed by Paul Schrader, best known for writing Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, and later directing films like American Gigolo and First Reformed, Mishima is one of the boldest and most visually striking films of the 1980s. It tells the story of Japanese author Yukio Mishima through a mix of biopic, stylized stage recreations, and political reflection. The result is hypnotic, with a score by Philip Glass, cinematography by John Bailey, and production design that shifts between reality and myth. Despite the pedigree, it was a box office disaster. With a $5 million budget, it barely made back $500,000. The subject matter was controversial, the style was unconventional, and it never stood a chance with mainstream audiences. But today, it's considered a masterpiece and a high point of 1980s art house cinema. But today, it's considered a masterpiece, a daring film and a high point of 1980s art house cinema. Based on Thomas Harris's novel Red Dragon, Manhunter was the first film adaptation of his Hannibal Lecter stories, years before Anthony Hopkins would immortalize him in The Silence of the Lambs. Here, Brian Cox plays him with icy precision. Directed by Michael Mann, it follows FBI profiler Will Graham as he's pulled back into the field to catch a serial killer known as the Tooth Fairy, played by Tom Noonan. What sets it apart is Mann's signature Miami Vice-like style, neon lighting, stark architecture, and a synth-heavy score that gives the entire film a detached, dreamlike quality. It opened to mixed reviews and was poor at the box office, costing around $15 million and earning just over half of that back. It was dismissed at the time as too cold or too clinical, but now enjoys a more favorable reception, as both the stylized visuals and acting have been appreciated more in later years. It's stripped down, moody, and way ahead of its time. With a punk rock soundtrack, radioactive Chevys, and aliens in the trunk, Repo Man was never built for mass appeal. Written and directed by Alex Cox, the film was weird, fast, and loaded with style. It stars Emilio Estevez, who gets pulled into the surreal world of car repossession, where conspiracy theories, government agents, televangelists, and punks all seem to overlap. Universal Pictures didn't know what to do with it.
So how much do I get paid? 25 bucks a car?
Paid? You don't get paid. You kidding? You work on commission. That's better than being paid.
The budget was $1.5 million, and it made just under $4 million, barely breaking even, and only after word of mouth gave it a second life. It's since gained a cult following, with critics often calling it one of the best films of 1984 in hindsight. It wasn't a failure, exactly, just too strange for its time. But now it plays like a blueprint for a generation of indie filmmakers who wanted their sci-fi with a little more attitude. Before Miami Vice and Manhunter, Michael Mann made his directorial debut with Thief, a sleek, deliberate crime drama that quietly set a new tone for the genre. James Caan plays Frank, a professional safecracker trying to leave his criminal life behind.
What is that? That is the flawless 3.2 carats emerald cut.
Even as one last job pulls him deeper into a world he can't control. Compared to the loud, high-concept action movies of the early 80s, Thief is practically meditative. It's a slow-burn character study disguised as a heist film, and while it didn't technically bomb, it went largely ignored by mainstream audiences at the time. But Detroit never looked this good, with Mann's clean, moody cinematography and slicked pavements. The city feels like a neon noir dream, while the Tangerine Dream score pulses underneath. Thief wasn't a misfire, but for a debut this strong, it deserved a much louder reaction. If you've never seen it, now's your chance. You won't be disappointed.